Two Guys, One Shaker Cup podcast, hosted by Joshua Shaw and Ryan Buckeye.
What's up, everybody? Welcome back inside Two Guys, One Shaker Cup podcast. Ryan Buckeye here, Joshua Shaw there on the screen if you're watching via YouTube. If you're listening on iTunes, Spotify, thank you so much for tuning in and checking us out. Hey, we talk about a lot of things in this podcast, and today we talk about a subject that, for me, is actually close to me, and people are probably watching YouTube and going to say, God damn it, I knew it. I can explain my personal stance on this here in a little bit, but should steroids in this country or even anywhere, should we legalize them? And I think it's a valid question because I will say this. I am on steroids. I've been totally transparent on this. I'm on TRT, testosterone replacement therapy. I have a medical doctor that said, Ryan, you have the test levels of a 14-year-old female. We need to make sure that you don't have that issue anymore. My testosterone levels were at 90. That's dangerously low. My life was miserable. I hated it. Okay, so in my case, like, it's not illegal. I'm taking it legally. I have a prescription, all that good stuff. But for the vast majority of people that take it, they're taking it illegally as of today. So I think this is an awesome conversation for us to have because we're both in this fitness world where, listen, we're not going to shy away from the topic. Steroids are used a lot by people, male and female. Let's not just say males. Females take them just as much, especially female competitors in the NPC. They are on some sort or version of a steroid. If you're a top-tier female athlete, you probably are taking something that's not potentially illegal. And then, as we talk steroids, we can then talk about professional sports. That's a whole different thing, and how those have changed the way people play sports. So, Josh Shaw, you've been around forever. I mean, I joked off air that you started in this industry and you guys were creating steroids. Damn it, you guys were creating supplements. You were creating creatine, and people thought they were steroids, but obviously creatine is not a steroid, and something like tren or testosterone is a steroid. So where do you sit on this, bud?
Yeah, like I said, I mean, I've been in the industry since I think like 2006. I've kind of jumped a little bit in and out, but that was kind of the early days. But even then, it was still, obviously steroids were illegal. Even I think pro hormones were added, and I've always been. I think this is partly because of my political views. I believe that just any person that is able-minded and kind of has their liberties in the United States should be able to consume what they wish for their own consumption as long as it's not hurting anybody else or whatever. So I tend to side with just having it legal based around that. I have no problem. I also don't really judge people what they do personally. Again, that maybe goes back to political views, but it's the idea that whatever you do in your own home, as long as it's not affecting me, I go at it. If you think you need it for sport, you need it for just health, you need it for just confidence, I don't really care. Whatever it is, if that's your own personal choice, as long as you can make that choice without having some somebody swaying it or something that's coercing that or whatever, I'm okay with it. I'm all about it. I definitely not the most educated on all the intricacies around, especially anabolics. I can tell you about testosterone, but outside of that, if you start getting all the other names about different things and this combination and that and what I've never really gotten into that side of the industry. I'm also not really a science guy at all. So the formulations and everything on our industry is like a different language to me. So I only know enough to be dangerous. Outside of that, I let the smart guys discuss the science. But I think overall for me, I just always go back to it should be legal, and especially with anabolics. You don't necessarily there's not anything that really causes harm to the rest of society. And I know, some crazy people are going to say, well, what about roid rage? Yeah. It's like, come on, it only amplifies what's already around you. Yeah. You know what I mean? If you're an angry person, you take something that's going to elevate your testosterone level, maybe you're a little bit more angry, but it's not like these stories, this propaganda you hear from, from different sides of the board. It's like, that's one thing that quite honestly, to me, anabolics is it's not doing anything to hurt anybody really. I mean, that's maybe I'm uneducated. Maybe you're gonna maybe have a point or two. But I think that for me, if you want to gain some more muscle, or you want to get a bigger bench because it makes you feel more confident, have at it. Do it. I don't care.
Yeah, my point of view on this is very similar to yours in terms of like that libertarian point of view. Like, you should be able to consume what you want if you're in good mind. Now, I will say, should anabolic steroids be legal? Yes, but. And I say that because I think that there are some things by taking steroids that there are other things that can happen to you that if you don't take care of them. For instance, if you're taking steroids, you're going to have elevated blood pressure. You're going to need to take something for your heart and your cardiovascular system. You're going to want to take care, if you're taking testosterone, you're going to want to take like an AI or an aromatase inhibitor, which is going to lower your estrogen. Because if you have estradiol through the roof, that can lead to more severe things too. So, but at the same time, like in this country, it's legal? Drinking and smoking. And more people are killed from lung cancer and from drunken driving, which is, now lung cancer is not really hurting anybody else, but the secondhand smoking is, right? So like that's actually hurting people, and we've done a good job in this country of trying to like eliminate that, but drinking and driving is actually hurting people. So if I take a syringe, stick it in my ass, once or twice a week, who is that hurting, right? And back to your point on roid rage, like it's a complete myth. Like there's studies out there that say like, does it increase like aggression levels? Sure, a little bit because your test levels are up, but it doesn't increase like the willingness or want to fight and harm somebody. So there's not a connection between the two. And typically the stories that you hear of people who go on this roid rage tear are mixing steroids with cocaine or methamphetamines or something else. And to your point, it just amplifies the environment around you. So I believe that if steroids were legal, I would like them to be purchased through like a store of some sort, not buying it from Jim Smith on the street corner who cooked it in his kitchen, because that's a completely different, like, but that's also saying, well, then do you believe meth should be legal? Because that's being cooked in campers across the world, according to Breaking Bad anyway. So it's just, I mean, I understand like testosterone, if it's not filtered correctly, you could inject some metals into your body and it could be very bad for you. So if you go to, say, a compound pharmacy where you don't need a written prescription and you can buy a vial of test every 10 weeks because that's what the dosage protocol should be, or maybe every 7 weeks, and you follow that guy, kind of like Sudafed, right? You can buy Sudafed, but you have to show your ID now, and if you buy too much Sudafed, they'll cut you off. Very similar to that, I think it should be, because you don't want, sure, people should be able to take what they want, but a lot of people are sometimes uneducated, so you want to make sure that you try to guide them the correct way to use something, no different than like OxyContin, and obviously there's a whole different story there, but you can get X amount of refills in this time frame because that's what we deem safe. So I think if we still could do a good job of saying like we deem this safe, it shouldn't be an issue. I mean, people should be educated, like where do you inject and all this stuff. I mean, there's a lot of things that can happen there, but outside of that, like you're not hurting anybody. If you want to prevent muscle wasting and you want to put on some size, instead of taking some of this over-the-counter shit that's actually more harmful for you than actual anabolic steroids, you give somebody a means to do that. Don't even get me started on sports, dude. You remember Sammy Sosa and Mark McGwire?
Yeah.
How much fun was that? It was the best time in baseball.
Yeah. It's funny because I was thinking about that as well. Like this just hatred of drugs or fear of drugs. I don't know what it is. If it's a lot comes down to like propaganda. And it's funny because both of the past generations, be it Gen X or now millennials, and I'm sure that Generation Z is going to have their own moment. But like you think back to like the 80s and the Reagans of this, like the war on drugs, and them really taking that as like a stance that really affected like Gen Xers of like drugs are bad, we don't need to be doing drugs, because that was kind of before, or that was right after kind of the Woodstock, the 70s, the 60s, all that kind of enjoying of it, where now all of a sudden everything turned to be such a negative thing where like all the propaganda was like, we need to stop this, we need to stop the inflow of drugs and whatever was going on. And then, then you had in the early 2000s, the millennials, we got it through sports. We got the propaganda through sports where all of a sudden Balco came around and, the testing of all this stuff with Patrick Arnold and all this stuff that they were doing, they all of a sudden told us kids that if you take steroids or whatever, you're cheaters and you're wrong and you're whatever. And then, we're impressionable and we're like, well, we can't do this. That's bad. Why would we do this? Whatever. So it hit us in a different way. And I'm sure that in the next decade or so, there's going to be that moment that's going to happen as well with Gen Z. Now, it seems like it's swaying the total opposite. Yeah. Now, Gen X and millennials have kind of wrapped their head around all this propaganda and said, whoa. Is this as bad as we think it is? Like, have we criminalized this stuff to such a level that is just causing us more hurt and waste of money and whatever it is. Is it counter doing all these things with police forces or whatever? And now let's go the opposite direction. Let's legalize a bunch of this stuff, and I think that maybe it changes us back to this 60s, 70s generation of just having all this available, and it's more thought of in a positive way. So, there's a lot of with the medical marijuana, also recreational marijuana that's happening. You're also seeing the decriminalization of mushrooms in Denver and then in Oakland. I'm not sure if anybody else has passed it recently, but you're starting to see society kind of change their mind and say, okay, let's relook at this. People that tried to brainwash us 20, 30, 40 years ago might not have had the best intentions here, or maybe they did, but it swayed a little bit too far. And let's relook at this. So for me, I just find this kind of interesting, and because we kind of were in the middle of it, and now as an adult, I've completely kind of changed my mind. But when I was during the Sammy Sosa, Mark McGwire days of them banging home runs, I initially was kind of like, dang, like I can't be doing this kind of stuff. Like I can't cheat myself. I can't be doing, why would I want to be that kind of person? I want to be, we're kind of in that in-between generation. So I think it's interesting. I don't know if your mind flipped because you played baseball as well. Like when you were watching that, it was fun to watch, but after you learned about it, like what did you think about it?
I didn't care.
What was your thoughts about like Sammy Sosa and all those guys?
I was more offended by the cork bat than the steroids. I mean, I didn't care, like the steroid thing didn't bother me. I grew up watching pro wrestling. I realized that they were in there, and like my favorite wrestlers were like Hulk Hogan. Can't tell me he just said his prayers and ate his vitamins, brother. He did something. So, and the thing, it never bothered me. People would say, well, if you take steroids, your wiener is going to shrink, right? Like that was always the thing to tell the kids, like your wiener is going to shrink if you take steroids. Listen, that's not true. All right. I'll say that right now. It's not true. But it just never bothered me. And I don't know if it's because maybe my brothers around me were in the recreational drugs. I was kind of used to it. I mean, I chose to stay away from those. Like I didn't want to do any like marijuana, cocaine, that type of stuff was never my thing. I have then, I always thought that kind of stuff was worse than steroids. So taking a look at those types of drugs now as an adult, I've totally flipped. I mean, I'm all for legalization of marijuana. Will I choose to do it? No, but I don't need to. But it's once you start testing these theories and you find out, hey, you actually can make some good money off of this. It can help build schools in Colorado and provide a really good economy. Why not? I mean, it's no different than drinking. And you go to Mexico, you can buy anabolic steroids at the counter in Mexico. Now, they probably have plenty of data down in Mexico. I'm not sure how good it is, but they probably have data in Mexico that says, like, here are things that users of AES or anabolic exogenous steroids did, and we think it's because of them. I bet you, I think I've read somewhere, like, it's like number 498 or something on a list of, like, causes. It's way down there. It's way below everything else. So in this case, that's why I say, like, listen, I mean, some of the stuff that's on the market that we deem legal, I mean, is more harmful for your liver and your system anyway. I mean, it's absolutely crazy how we can go, and we've talked about this on a recent episode of this podcast, you can stop at the Golden Arches, man, and get 2 Big Macs. That's killing you more than any AES is going to kill you, and not saying it's going to harm other people, but if we're trying to prevent self-harm in any way, well, then close down McDonald's, stop allowing them to serve all this stuff versus something that can actually benefit somebody's health. Because if you take steroids and you do it the correct way, you could actually enhance your way of life and actually be healthier because of it. Now, you have to be smart about it. You can't just abuse it. But at the end of the day, if their concern is, well, people might abuse steroids, people abuse alcohol every goddamn day. Every day. I mean, they're drinking a bottle of vodka a day, and we don't put a limit on that. I mean, yeah, you got to be 21. Okay, then make us be 21 to buy steroids. Who cares? You don't have to make every variation of a steroid legal. Like, Trend's a little hardcore. I don't necessarily know if Trend needs to be legal. I mean, I don't care if it is, but I can understand if you say, like, we'll make testosterone and DECA and things like these legal. Okay, to me, that's fine. And I can understand, like, maybe waiting a little bit on the harsher side of ones or the ones that are a little bit more extreme. But also, the people who want to take these are also, I think, educated enough to take them too, right? If you're going to stick a needle in your body that has a liquid substance, you're probably going to want to know what you're doing, because you don't want to harm yourself. I don't think anybody intentionally wants to harm themselves by doing stuff. So you're probably going to do your research saying, okay, I need to take 200 megs of test a week, should blah, 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 blah. And they'll be more educated on it. And that's why, like, people who smoke marijuana, they know they're not supposed to get behind the wheel of a car. Like they understand, like they don't want to cause harm by doing it because they want to keep it legal. So you have this responsibility to abide by the laws provided under legalization of something. And I think for the most part, people do a good job of it.
Yeah, I mean, and I also think like anabolic steroids or anything, like it doesn't have this instantaneous kind of reaction in your body that you're getting like a high or you're getting some element of something. Like if you were to inject heroin or something, you're saying about like responsible people, like people are injecting that because they get a feeling that they can't replicate in the world. That's the only way to replicate it. So they're not trying to be safe. They're trying to get to some feeling. Where anabolics, you're going to have a level of education because somebody's not going to inject something and just get this like euphoric high or whatever it is. It's something that somebody's going to take the time and effort into understanding a little bit. It's back to that responsibility effort. I think most people, society as a whole, are going to treat any substance responsibly. I don't think like if we were to federally allow marijuana tomorrow, you're not going to just have this like crazy amount of people that just go nuts on it, do a bunch of crazy stuff. I mean, I think that's what most people thought Colorado was going to happen. Like crime was going to go up, all these different, car issues, things that were like with wrecks or deaths or whatever. Like none of that happened. I think the opposite happened. I think a lot of the trends went the opposite direction because now it washed away a lot of the black market. It washed away a lot of the issues that people were trying to get things illegally. So now the arguments are a little bit kind of scraped away. And now what do you do? I mean, to me, I think that anabolics is more similar to like the discussion we're having with marijuana as a society. It's kind of similar because marijuana to me, and again, it's not to that point where you can replicate. I don't know. I kind of think about it similar to like alcohol or something. Like there's other ways to replicate the feelings you're getting like that, and it does take a cumulative amount to get you to that point. It's not like instantaneous. We're not talking about heroin or something meth or something crazy like that. So to me, it's just a matter of kind of like allowing this. I mean, I think we're at this point now where there's so much information that's available now. I think people can understand. This is all disseminated information. It's not like people are keeping this behind closed doors. People can make the decision for themselves. Is this good for me or not, based around the variables that are in their lives, and based around that and the hope that they take that time to think of that. It shouldn't be a problem. We shouldn't be really worried about what they're doing inside of their own homes or whatever. As long as, advocating the idea of allowing all this, but also understanding that these things do have a small amount of kind of harm or things that could go wrong. So not advocating a complete like free market access to it, like saying somebody's making it in their garage or their bathroom, but having kind of similar to recreational marijuana or medical marijuana, where there's still a body that has to verify the grow process. Are they using different pesticides? What is actually in this kind of making sure there's some checks and balances just in case something does go wrong. It's not, these are a little bit higher class or have more effect on the body than say, a vitamin, a multivitamin or something like that. Now that could cause some problems as well, but it's to a lower level. So you don't need to, you need to have a little bit more of a check and balance on it than just kind of letting it go full bore.
I think too, people need to understand that the consumers for anabolic steroids are actually trying to better their lives, like trying to be healthy. They know that they take this, they probably should work out. They probably should eat right, because you can't just take steroids, sit on the couch and expect to get big. That's not how it works. But for the people who are trying to say we should legalize meth, I mean, that's not really a healthy person making that decision. Now, should they legalize it? Whatever. That's a conversation for the other day. But the person taking meth is not the same person as taking a steroid, because the person taking a steroid is actually trying to become sort of healthier and become more muscular or just prevent certain things, or even help with fat loss, because there are some anabolic steroids that obviously act as a fat burner as well as a muscle builder. So there's a lot of benefits with anabolic steroids that I think could go a long way in society. And the problem with it being illegal today is all these steroid powders are coming in from China or Korea and all these countries, sneaking through customs. Who knows how pure they are? But then, yes, somebody's literally cooking them in their kitchen. I mean, there's YouTube videos, Josh. You can look up like how to take a testosterone powder and turn it into a liquid. It tells you exactly the type of oil to buy, and it tells you how much you're supposed to cook it for and the filtration process and all this stuff. It's kind of sketch, So I would be all about let's legalize it, but to your point, very similar to recreational marijuana, have a body, like a governing body, to making sure like this stuff is safe. Like it's still safe. It's not contaminated with metals. Here's the proper dosages. Now we make the decision. But at least then we're not buying a dirty vial of something, because nobody wants that. And there could be a very good economy for this type of stuff too, because you look at the dietary supplement industry and how much is that worth today? It's massive, right? A lot of people, if you look within the dietary supplement industry at what we'd call the muscle builders, your creatines, your prohormones, your natural anabolics, as they like to say, I mean, that's a huge portion that a lot of people spend a lot of money on. So there's a market there for it for sure. And I think, obviously, a lot of people don't take steroids because they are illegal. They're afraid if they get caught with them, the DEA is going to come and kick them out of the country or put them in jail or something. So, that's why a lot of people, too, why doesn't the bodybuilders, the Olympia athletes, why don't they talk openly about it and help educate others? Well, because it's illegal. I mean, you don't want to talk about doing something illegal in a public platform, because then all of a sudden you're admission of guilt of doing something you weren't supposed to be doing. So that's why most people don't talk about it. Now, if you legalize it, now these bodybuilders who are educated on it can help educate the others that are looking to better their lives through health and fitness, that want to take an AES. And I think we'd be better off as a society who actually takes these substances, because at the end of the day, they get a extremely bad rap from people, and the people who give them a bad rap are the ones who know nothing about them.
Yeah, I mean, it could, and also I think with it being, was it like a Schedule III drug, like with anabolics? I mean, it's up there with all the big guys. I think that in some way causes some issues with the way it can be tested, like the availability of it being tested, like universities or different things like that. Right. So you're not getting, like, we're at this point now in society where we are like trying to understand more about our bodies. We're trying to understand more, this idea of like maybe biohacking or whatever, where people are interested in what they're consuming. They want to know how it's reacting in their body. You see people now wearing like blood glucose monitors constantly. You're seeing them like use their body as like a science project in a way, and just kind of get to that level. That's kind of a change in everything. But we now want to get more information, but it being on this kind of class of drugs, not being able to really be fully used to, kind of manipulate our bodies to see how it reacts, kind of hurts us in the long run. I think it's, we could get a lot of benefit from just allowing everything to be kind of consumed. I think that's where a lot of this idea coming from, we said like biohacking, but just with Silicon Valley, kind of the area of innovation where most people think, tech wide, a lot of them, be it programmers or be it founders or whatever it is, they are experimenting with their bodies on a crazy kind of level. And they're trying to microdose LSD right now because it opens up their mind to certain things. They're obviously doing a lot of things with the Adderalls and the Vyvances and things like that. You're seeing a lot of action with marijuana or mushrooms or all these different things where people are trying to unlock parts of their body, their mind, or whatever, and they want to have that ability to do it. And I know that this discussion is probably leaning towards people that are super responsible because they are even looking at it with like a fresh set of eyes. I mean, anybody that probably looks at it for performance, not, we've been talking about athletic performance. This is more just life, professional performance, but there's a whole other spectrum of people that are looking at it in that manner. And also I think anabolics in a way also helps that. I mean, you said before, I mean, with low testosterone, I mean, your energy's down, your focus, your drive, and everything goes into this. And as a society, our testosterone levels have been continuously going down over the generations. So we're at this point now where, be it the environment, be it whatever we're doing to ourselves, is causing a bunch of hurt, and this exogenous testosterone could potentially get us back on the right track. So I don't know. I mean, I just keep going back to this idea of that I would love to see all of this kind of just be legalized and us be able to test it and see what it does and actually go forward with it, kind of with the idea of like CBD and marijuana, a lot of the stuff now. Finally, some of these studies are going to start coming out, and we're going to see what is bullshit and what is actually the functionality behind all this, based around different synergies or different dosages or whatever. But we can't get to that point until you legalize it. You know what I mean? When you finally started to legalize CBD, now it's like, cool, now we can start to study it and we can actually understand what is going to be out there. And then at that point, then it's commercialization of it. Can we make money from it? Can we tax it because of people making profits? Like a bunch of stuff that then opens up the door to us maybe taking it away from the black market, where you don't get any benefit, and moving it in the front and being able to actually get in front of it.
Yeah, if you took a poll of people listening to this out there, I guarantee if you said if steroids were legal, would you take them? Most people would. Most people would say yes, they would for sure, because their understanding of it, I think their negativity towards it is just that word, legal. I mean, like my wife included, she doesn't like them because they're illegal, right? But like she doesn't know the ins and outs of them and how they work and how they operate within our bodies. Now, there are some really cool anabolic steroids out there that are considered steroids that have alternative sort of benefits to it. For instance, we've talked for years about, can we develop male birth control? There's one that exists. It's called Trestolone. It's out there. It just happens to be a steroid as well. So, like, you can stop your sperm production as a male, but you're also going to get bigger. And it's also one of the strongest anabolic steroids out there. So, like, there are other applications for these things that exist today in terms of if we're, women complain all the time, Josh, well, you take a pill. I gladly legalize it. Legalize it. I gladly will take it. If I'm going to put on 10 pounds maybe in like 3 months and I don't have to worry about spending money on condoms and all this other kind of stuff, you bet your ass I'll take it, like for sure. So, I mean, we're trying here, people, women. We are trying. I guarantee if they legalize it tomorrow, I would buy the entire store out of it because no one likes those rubber things that you have to buy. Yes, I said that. But I'm just saying, like, there are other benefits to anabolics. That's just, obviously one is going to be getting larger if you work out and eat correctly. But I just think there's a lot of drugs on that, like you mentioned, I think it was level 3 or whatever it is, where there's stuff out there that probably can be pretty useful in society, but the fact that we can't study them or use them at a university level makes it very difficult to do so. For the most part, I think people are responsible. I always like to give people the benefit of the doubt. You're going to have a bad apple here and there, but those, I mean, like I said, those bad apples are out buying shotguns and pistols and making bad decisions that way, which are actually harming people and peoples and populations. Anabolics aren't going to do that. So it's just, if you think they're taboo, like, and you're listening to this, you're watching this, and you think that they're bad, give us a reason why you think they're bad. Give us a reason why you think that they shouldn't be illegal, because we'd like to engage in conversation with you about it. And as long as it's an educational conversation, if you just say, well, because they're illegal, or if you use roid rage, or you say, well, look at some of these bodybuilders. Well, the bodybuilders didn't necessarily die because of their steroid use. There was some other stuff going on there as well. We can point to that and look at that. Now, yes, there has been some bodybuilders who have died where their toxicology reports have their testosterone levels way up there. That's unfortunate. But that's one case in how many, right? So I say yes, but it should be legal because, to Josh's point, like, I want these to be made correctly, so people are obtaining safe versions of this, not something made in somebody's kitchen or in their basement. But I don't have an issue. I've never had an issue with anabolic steroids. I think they should be legal. I think we would learn a lot from them, and I think the ones that have been using it a long time could help educate others, and it opens up another economy. And if that helps with tax dollars to build roads or schools or meatheadsforschools.com. I mean, I'll buy the domain right now and we'll start selling anabolicsforschools.com, whatever it might be. Like, we'll do it because I think for the most part, people really do want to better their lives. And if this is an opportunity for them to do so, especially us in the fitness world, without harming other people, why the hell not?
Yeah, it's like one of those. One of my favorite sayings is like, don't throw the baby out with the bathwater. It's like there's a lot of there are some bad things that can obviously happen, but why also throw out the very good element of it? Mm-hmm. Because that's way more important than the bad stuff. So it's a matter of can we, whatever it is, make sure that it's properly implemented correctly, which opens up a whole other discussion about can that actually happen or how that actually happens. But I think overall, I mean, I would just like people to probably open up their mind a little bit. I definitely came from an area where my parents and everything were very much anti a lot of that, at least as a kid, kind of letting me know about that kind of stuff. And as an adult, after you kind of open up your mind a little bit and see what is real and what is not, when people throw this kind of propaganda at you, you'll start to realize that a lot of that stuff is not correct. It's just a matter of perception is not matching reality, and when you open up your mind a little bit, you'll see there's a lot of availability to it. So if people, like Ryan said, if people have some differing thoughts and have some very strong opinions on why they believe we're completely wrong in all this, have at it, shoot us it. We would love to talk about it, but like you said, don't just start throwing some crazy regurgitated propaganda that has no backing behind it.
Once you go to a professional sports game and to see your favorite player, whether it be a basketball player, football player, baseball player, and you find out they're not playing that day because they need an off day, you're going to be begging that steroids were legal. Because if they were on them, they'd be in that lineup every single day. You get your money's worth on these expensive tickets that you're buying. But do us a huge favor. Leave us a review. Subscribe to this podcast, Spotify, iTunes, where you can watch it via YouTube. And we're over at Facebook. Facebook page is a great page to engage with us in conversation, especially I feel like we're probably going to have some good conversation with this episode. People with strong opinions either way. We just ask, if you have a strong opinion, provide some context behind it. Not just, these are shitty, they shouldn't be legal. Like, give us some reason, because try to change our minds too. Maybe you have a good reason why they shouldn't be. Maybe there's something that we don't know, because to Josh's point, we're not juicers. Like, I get mine from a doctor, so I'm not out there researching all these different research chemicals. I know of some of them because people ask me about them, and for what I do, I need to at least be like knowledgeable on the surface, but I might not know everything. So if you're very intelligent on this subject and you've spent time actually with research on this, hit us up, and we'd love to have that conversation with you. So until next time, maybe by the next episode, steroids will be legal. If that's the case, I'm starting a steroid shop. And this podcast we can do out of we'll do the podcast out of the basement, and we'll cook in the lab.
Yeah, you better get that URL, get that website.
That's right. All right, I'm Ryan Bucka. That's Josh Shaw. We appreciate you all tuning in. Until next week, take care.